At this time, we will have a couple of announcements for our state. First, I would like to introduce Jill Smith, Chair of the Nominating Committee.
Thank you, Paula, for allowing time for me to introduce the nominating committee members. I'm Jill Smith. I'm from the Littleton South Metro branch. Marcy Young is from the Durango branch. Kathy Olivier is an alternate from the Boulder branch. Kathy Olson from Colorado Springs. Brenda Wolf, also from Colorado Springs. And Eileen Young from Aurora. We have 5 positions to fill for the 2021 to 2023 AAUW Colorado slate. The first position is president-elect, and I am very excited to announce that Joan Brown from the Aurora branch has agreed to accept that challenge. The second position is program development VP, which is still open. Secretary position is open. And I'm very pleased to announce that our current treasurer, Kathy Singer from Grand Junction branch, has offered to continue in the position for a second term. And the 5th position is the public policy co-director, which is open. So that leaves 3 positions that are open. And here's a great leadership opportunity for all of you. Job descriptions are available on the state website. We encourage all members to consider joining the state board. It's a great way to learn about AAUW and its structure, and to meet and work with members from other branches. If you are interested, or if you have a suggestion for a nominee, please contact any of the committee members. We meet monthly, and we would love to hear from you. You can find our names and contact information again on the state website under the nominating committee members list. And if you get a call from any of us, please consider saying yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Now I would like to introduce Betty Boyd, our Lobby Corps coordinator, to give us an update report on the ballot issues. Betty?
I guess I'll just go ahead and start. First of all, thank you, Paula, for the introduction. Before I get into the specific ballot issues for 2020, I need to remind you of some AAUW policies regarding voter education. AAUW does not endorse candidates for partisan office, nor any political party. AAUW state and branches may conduct election-related activities, such as candidate forums, as long as the activity does not advocate the election of partisan candidates or a political party, and the activity is not coordinated with a partisan candidate or political party. AAUW members cannot use the name of AAUW when endorsing candidates or political parties. On the ballot issues, when AAUW has a stated position, the member is always free to vote how they wish, but they may not publicly take an opposite position and identify as an AAUW member. Nor may branches publicly take an opposing position to the state position. Well, we have a full ballot, as we usually do in Colorado this year. There are 11 issues that we'll be voting on, 4 constitutional issues, 2 of them initiated by citizens and 2 referred by the state legislature. And then there are 7 statutory issues that change the state laws. 6 of those are initiated, and 1 is referred by the General Assembly. Colorado AAUW has taken a position on two of the issues, and I will talk about them first. The two issues on which we have positions are Proposition 115 and Proposition 118, and they are both statutory changes. First of all, Proposition 115 is the prohibition on late-term abortions, and our position is no on 115. If the voters approve this measure, women in Colorado would be banned from having abortions after 22 weeks of pregnancy, except when there's a risk to the mother's life. These types of abortions are only about 1.3% of all procedures and often are the result of parents receiving life-altering diagnoses about the fetus. A little bit more information on 115. Every pregnancy is unique. You can never know the circumstances of someone's life, and that's why we believe that health decisions should be between doctors and families. The decision to have an abortion later in pregnancy is unique for every woman and family. Circumstances can include when the health of a mother is at risk, when a woman learns there is a lethal fetal diagnosis, or when a pregnancy is a result of incest or rape. As a matter of fact, the opponents have specifically stated, or the proponents have specifically stated that they want rape victims to carry their pregnancy to term. Abortion should be accessible to all, no matter who they are, what they look like, or how much money they make. We must allow women and their families, in consultation with their doctors, to determine what healthcare is right for them. We must keep abortion bans out of Colorado. And this, our position is supported by national AAUW public policy positions, as they always are. The second issue on which we've had taken a position is Proposition 118, Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program for Colorado. And we are strongly supporting a yes vote on Proposition 118. This initiative would mandate that employers provide 12 weeks of paid family leave and medical leave for many Colorado workers, plus an additional 4 weeks in the case of complications. This leave could be used for childbirth and other family medical situations. The law would offer paid leave benefits to workers who have earned at least $2,500 at their job. It also guarantees that people won't be fired while they're on leave if they have been on the job for at least 180 days. When they are on leave, workers' wages would be partially covered through a state-administered fund. The money in that fund would be supplied by premiums paid by employers and workers, amounting to 0.9% of each worker's wage. Businesses with fewer than 10 people would be exempt from the employer premium, and companies could opt out to go with their own leave program instead of participating in the statewide program. Supporters say it's critical support so that working families can deal with health issues, while opponents are saying it's a burden that businesses can't deal with amid the pandemic turndown and recovery. Well, several other states have already passed this kind of a paid family medical leave insurance program with great success. So I said that there were 4 constitutional issues. The first one is Amendment 76, an interesting one. It's citizenship qualification of electors. It asks the question, should the state constitution be amended to explicitly require that Colorado voters must be US citizens? The state already bans non-citizens from voting. So opponents say this would accomplish little in practice, but supporters argue that the language needs to be strengthened and point to a handful of cities in other states that allow non-citizens to vote in some local elections. The state constitution currently says that every citizen may vote, while the amendment would change it to say that only citizens may vote. Amendment 77 is local voter approval of gaming limits in Black Hawk, Central City, and Cripple Creek. When the voters approved gambling in these three historic mining communities, it came with a lot of limits. Casinos can only offer slots, blackjack, poker, craps, and roulette. And as of 2008, individual wagers are capped at $100. This measure would allow voters in the three cities to approve additional games and higher bets. It also allows revenues to go to community colleges. The third constitutional change, Amendment B, is to repeal the property tax assessment rates. It's a partial repeal of the Gallagher Amendment, which limits property taxes to 45% of the statewide tax base. If passed, the measure would prevent automatic cuts to residential property tax rates in the future. Homeowners' bills won't go down, but funding for schools, rural fire districts, and other entities that rely on property taxes will. Originally, Gallagher was added to the state constitution in 1982 and effectively forces the state to lower residential property tax rates in order to keep residential tax revenue balanced with commercial property revenue. This amendment was referred by the state legislature, as was Amendment C, which deals with bingo raffles and allows paid help and repeals the 5-year minimum. Currently, the nonprofits who offer bingo and raffles have that kind of license must be in existence for 5 years. This amendment would lower it to 3 years. And it also would allow those nonprofits to hire people to actually run the bingos and the raffles that they sponsor. The remaining ballot issues are statutory, and they create new laws new laws or change the laws in the Colorado Revised Statutes. Proposition 113 adopts an agreement to elect the US presidents by national popular vote. Colorado's voters can choose to affirm or reject the legislature's 2019 decision to join the National Popular Vote Compact, which could eventually bind Colorado and other states to commit their presidential election votes to the candidate who wins most votes nationally, rather than to the candidate who wins the state. Proposition 114 deals with the restoration of gray wolves. The question is, should Colorado reintroduce gray wolves on certain lands west of the Continental Divide? If approved, it could help an endangered species recover its place in Colorado ecology. But the measure faces criticism from ranchers who fear they'll lose livestock to the predators. Proposition 116 is a state income tax reduction. The initiative would cut the state's current income tax rate. It's a flat rate rather than graduated, but the flat rate from 4.63% to 4.55%. So a person making $50,000 would see their tax burden fall by about $40. This change would reduce state government's revenue by an estimated $170 million in the next fiscal year. Supporters argue it would boost business and consumer spending, while opponents say it would weaken government service and social supports already severely cut by the downturn. This measure was originally intended to counter a progressive tax measure that failed to make it to the ballot. Proposition 117 is a voter approval requirement for the creation of certain fee-based enterprises. This would add a new Tabor-like provision to the state law, requiring the state government to get voter permission before it creates major new enterprises, which are partially funded by fees. Colorado voters already have the authority over tax increases and rarely approve them. The state Supreme Court has held that a fee is different from a tax because it is reasonably connected to a specific purpose. And in the years that Tabor has been in effect, lawmakers have used them, enterprises, as a way to raise money without raising taxes. Critics see these fees as an end run around Tabor spending limits. And then lastly, Proposition EE came from the state legislature. If passed, it would raise an estimated $1.68 million in the next fiscal year by creating a new tax on nicotine vaping products and raise existing taxes on tobacco products. Vaping product taxes would start at 30% of the manufacturer's price and eventually rise to 62%. The tax on cigarettes would ramp up from 84 cents a pack today to $2.64 a pack by 2027. Taxes on other tobacco products would grow from 40% today to 62% in 2027. The minimum price for cigarettes would be set at $7 per pack beginning in 2024. Over 10 years, it's anticipated that $2 billion would be raised for universal preschool for all 4-year-olds, $110 million for tobacco or vaping cessation programs or public health programs, and $375 million for public schools. So that's a pretty full ballot. Again, a reminder that we are opposing Proposition 115, the abortion ban in Colorado, and we are supporting Proposition 118, paid family and medical leave. And you can get information by more information from the Colorado Secretary of State's website. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. I think there are a couple questions that came in that maybe we would have time for. Carolyn?
Okay, the first one came from Virginia Brown, and it's for Betty, and I think it's from earlier in your talk. She says, can we have current state rep talk about what the experience is like and how last year went without asking for a vote? I'm not totally sure what she means. I think maybe they wanted to have a state rep come in and talk to them, and that rep might be associated with a particular political party.
Oh, I see.
I know how their experience is being a state rep.
I think that would be acceptable. It would be great if possible to have two reps come, one from each party, but sometimes that just is not possible. I understand when you're creating programs, you want to learn about their experience. I think if you were to have that person, you would have to clearly state that something to the effect that AAUW is not supportive of a particular party or candidate, but just welcome them as a member of probably one of their own local representatives. I know Aurora Branch has several former state representatives who are members of their branch as well. Does that help?
Hopefully. Let me go to the next question. Where does the gaming money go now? And what is the estimate of additional gaming revenues to the community colleges?
I'm afraid I don't have that information as well. Right, currently it goes to education, and it's mostly public education, but it's a minuscule amount of the total funding for public education for public PK through 12. By adding community colleges, I think they're probably wanting to increase support for the amendment. As far as the total amount of money, I don't have that right now. The Blue Book, which is published by the state, was supposed to go to print earlier this week. And at the last minute, there was a suit brought because of a change made by the Legislative Council. So that delayed the printing of the Blue Book. But you will get that Blue Book with the fiscal, all of the fiscal information around each of those issues, and it will be mailed to you, to all voters. I went to see if I could find the existing language that's proposed for the Blue Book, and I could not find that online right now and probably once it's gone off to the printer, it'll be available. And that would be available on the General Assembly website. It's a little bit hard to find, but if you ask the question about the general question about the Blue Book publication, you ought to be able to find it once it's available and online.
Great, thank you. Were there any other questions, Carolyn?
I have a couple more. I know we have until 10:30, so
Right.
let's try to squeeze in a couple more. From
Okay.
Marilyn Hanson, can you tell us how AAUW stands on the amendments and propositions?
Well, we are neutral on all of the others. We are opposed to 115, Proposition 115. We are in support of Proposition 118. And the remainder we have not taken a position on. And
Okay.
don't plan to.
Okay, and the last question, maybe we can squeeze in from Gail Wilson. Can you discuss the difference between constitutional amendment and statutory law/amendments, i.e. their impact over time and how they may be modified in the future? What would voters need to do or not do to change the amendment/law?
It's, first of all, thanks for the question, Gail. It's harder to amend the Constitution. It requires a higher level of signatures. It requires 55, let's see. It requires, first of all, in order to pass it, the threshold is above 55% of the voters have to approve. For statutory laws, for Colorado revised statutes, it takes a simple majority of the voters to pass. It's also more difficult for the legislature to place constitutional issues on the ballot. In order to place a statutory change on the ballot, it requires a majority of both houses of the legislature. In order to put a constitutional ballot issue on the ballot, it requires 2/3 majority in both houses. So it's more difficult to put constitutional issues on the ballot. So that's the main difference. The threshold of signatures is higher also for signatures required for the citizen initiatives. The threshold of signatures is higher for constitutional amendments. And for constitutional, I take that back. Constitutional amendments require a certain level of signatures from each of the 35 senatorial districts in the state of Colorado. So there have been some that probably have had enough signatures total, but they didn't have enough from one or more of the state Senate districts.
Okay, I think we're out of time.
Okay. Thank you so much, Betty, for enlightening us. Is it my understanding that the participants are going to be receiving something, more information?
Yes, I can get that to Susan, and that way you'll have it in front of you and wouldn't have had to take quite so many notes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Betty and Jill. Thank you.